Hi, I'm Ashley Ann Gardner, and I'm an Orlando-based theater artist, and I'm also the host of Orlando Theater Hour, a weekly radio show on WPRK 91.5 FM, Winter Park, Florida. Every week, I interview a theater artist from the Central Florida community, and I ask them a few questions about their current project, their creative passions, and artistic topics that make them tick. My wonderful co-host, Orlando artist Bruce Ryan Costella, adds witty flavor and intelligent discourse whenever he's willing and able. Orlando Theater Hour's mission is community over competition, and guests are encouraged to advocate for other artists' projects as well as their own. We talk process, purpose, technique, and more. Welcome back to WPRK 91.5, Winter Park, Florida. You're listening to Orlando Theater Hour. I'm your host, Ashley Ann Gardner. Today, my co-host, Bruce Ryan Costella, is unable to join us, but we miss him so much. Orlando Theater Hour is here on WPRK every Monday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you don't have access to a radio during the live broadcast, you can find the podcast episode of our upcoming interview at orlandotheaterhour.com. That's theater with an R-E, not an E-R. If you enjoy the music we play, you can find tracks and artists on our Spotify playlist, also located on the Orlando Theater Hour website. And today, our guests are Dina Ronan and John Reed Adams from Shakespeare's Terminator II, currently playing at Orlando Fringe. Thanks, Ashley. We're happy to be here. Good morning. It's so nice to see you and to meet you for the first time, John. Dina is one of the co-producers for Shakespeare's Terminator II, and she's also an ensemble member. And she's also the owner of Hardly Working Productions, the production company that is currently producing Shakespeare's Terminator II. And John Reed Adams plays the imposing T-1000 in the show.
I'll take that. Imposing's good.
I like that.
Good, yes.
The show was compiled by Husky Jackal out of Nashville by Marshall Weber and Cody DeVos. And it's the same production company, correct, that did last year's Shakespeare's Ghostbusters?
It is. That's true. The authors of Shakespeare's Ghostbusters were the Coincidence Men, Marcel St. Pierre and his cohorts. They wrote it with a faux Shakespeare to fit the dialogue, and they're out of Toronto, Canada. I found them. The Shakespeare's Terminator II folk, my co-producer David Strauss, owner of Kitty Beautiful Cat Cafe, which is coming to downtown Orlando. We'll talk about that a little bit. He found Shakespeare's Terminator folks, Husky Jackal, actually a couple years prior, but ended up working out a little backwards with how we did this. So they chose to write this format in taking actual Shakespearean lines from existing shows to fit our plot.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't know, last year I didn't know that all of the dialogue for Shakespeare's Ghostbusters was original, but sort of like fit to iambic pentameter.
Yes.
I thought that it was all compiled like it was this year. So that's really interesting.
There was the odd bit in Bob that is.
Like methinks the lady does protest too much. That was a few little lines, but most of it was the faux Shakespeare.
Yeah, it was parody Shakespeare.
Yes, this has been a much more challenging way to do it, but very rewarding, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this one, I'll say, walking out of this one, the show is not complete unless you run the risk of accidentally hitting someone on stage. But when you walk out, you're like, oh, thank God, thank the heavens, we are totally intact. We're fine.
Yeah, there's also the fight combat, the stage combat component, which has been amazingly challenging and rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you're using dagger and...
I myself am using dagger and rapier, but we are using a variety of different types of weapons. Bill Warner, our fight choreographer, knows the terminologies a heck of a lot better than I do. So some I never even knew existed. I'm not even going to try for the sake of avoiding, incurring his wrath when he's like, John, they're called this. I'm like, no. I was like, okay, I'll just stick to what I know, dagger and rapier.
Has it been a fun process learning?
It's been fun, but there have been times where even I myself was getting very racked because I was like, because there's always that nervousness. Because for myself, this was the first time ever doing any sort of intense stage combat for an audience before. I mean, actually, another person who works with us is Charles from Lance Orlando, which is a company that is all about learning sword combat for Renaissance festivals and the like. So, I mean, I've seen what they do, and they practice like every week with a variety of different weapons, and it's just astonishing to me that they do it so effortlessly. And when you're being taught by people who have such a heavy experience. And here you are, 37 years old, walking in. The closest to combat experience you have is just the basic tiger claw into the chest for a Doctor Who fan film. And all of a sudden, now I'm expecting to actually deconstruct an entire elaborate fight sequence where I have to, yeah, I have to parry, I have to cut in a almost flowing sequence
Hmm.
and make it look effortless because unfortunately, thanks to context, you have to look like you know what you're doing because I'm playing a mercurial, as one of our reviewers said, killing machine
Hmm.
for which in a way, quite literally, is embedded in his DNA or what passes for his DNA. So I have to make it look like I've been doing this because it's programmed and so there's that pressure of like I have to look like I know what I'm doing and look like this that I can slaughter innocent people and not bat an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all that added
Which he
pressure.
does. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch. And the rehearsals this year versus last year, it was a laugh a minute. We got to romp and play and laugh a lot, and we still had a fun process, but the levity is so much greater because people can get hurt.
Hmm.
And
Mm,
every movement means something. Every time you don't move, it means something.
yeah,
So the process was, we were concentrating a lot harder. We were a lot more serious, and everyone it felt so strongly about doing it well.
exactly. There, we knew the stakes at the second we got started because yeah, in the early process, it was just stand here, do your line. But at the second Bill really came in and really started working with us, that's when we realized the stakes shot through the roof because then we realized what we were actually in for, and that's where we knew, okay, we need to serious up and make sure that we do this and not potentially run the risk of any kind of hardcore permanent injury. And even then, you're gonna slip every now and then. I mean, one performance I accidentally clipped our star Matt Doman in the lip with the hilt of my rapier, and even yesterday for our last performance, I kind of had a bit of a brain. Uh, I don't know if it's appropriate to say the brain fart. I guess brain farts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
brain
brain farts
fart.
appropriate. All right, the gates are open. Farts allowed. So yes, but I had a bit of a brain fart where I accidentally missed a step on the middle of our in the beginning of our second fight, and I was like, okay, and then but that's another thing you learn from constant rehearsal is to know how to adjust from it and be able to keep it going. And that was one of the main things I learned under Bill Warner's excellent tutelage. So
Would you say that confidence is half the battle?
absolutely.
And practice, practice, practice. It reminded
Mhm.
me of, I mean, I danced for a long time. I still do, but I ended up choosing ballroom to dance in my later years
Hmm.
because I'm more of a school of movement and of lead and follow than I
Mm.
am of actual exact steps. There's two schools of thought. Well, there's several, but two main schools of thought when it comes to dance. You feel it in your motion and your emotion,
Hmm.
or you practice your left, your right, 1, 2, 3. I'm more of a follow and lead, emotive musicality gal. And doing this, I was thinking, okay, I have to do my exact steps and exact 1, 2, 3. That's just how it has to be. And that's true. But the more comfortable you get, the more it becomes natural, and you start feeling it. You start feeling the emotions with it,
Mm.
just like learning a dance.
Yeah. And it has been said, actually, it's been said a lot, especially recently, that stunt work and dance have a lot in common. In
Mm.
fact, actually, just recently, John Wick Chapter 3 just came out, and you find out a revelation that he was trained in a place that also was a front for as a dance school academy
Mm.
kind of thing. Actually, he's kind of Black Widow as well, same thing, where she learned
Oh,
her trade in
right. Yeah.
as a assassin school, also doubling as a dance academy. The same thing because in order to move, in order to be able to do what you do with the utmost grace, it's akin to a dance. So that
Hmm.
and that's a lot of it how I felt when I was moving the blade around and having to do it in a constant flowing motion. It did feel like a dance. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when we're prepping or like when we're backstage and we don't have room to do a full fight call, one of the things that Matt does that I do is that we just do it swords out of our hands, and just the way you see us doing it with our hands, it almost looks like we're doing some kind of crazy form of tai chi. So
And most shows will have a call before performance about
mm,
30 minutes prior. Our call is a solid 90 minutes prior to every performance to make sure we are practicing with the fights and
mm.
the movement and our physicality.
Do you do a lot of fight choreography in the show?
No, I have one scene, but I took it very seriously.
Oh, of course.
I've got one scene. I'm super proud of it. It it's part of a larger picture
Hmm.
where we're all rushing the stage and getting on and off, and it's very elaborate. So I go in and I do my thing and I do my war cry, and then I get off stage and I'm like, I did
I saw the show this past week on my one of my nights off at Fringe, and I really enjoyed it.
it. Thank you, thank you so much.
I
Thanks.
found that because of the source material, um, specifically the movie Terminator 2, I found that it was um, a lot more dramatic, of course, than Ghostbusters. But I enjoyed myself the same amount as I did last year because
Oh,
I love Terminator 2. And I used to work at the Terminator attraction at Universal,
Mm.
and a lot of people
oh,
considered that one the third movie instead of the actual third movie.
I get that.
Yeah.
Actually, it was funny. Our guest last night also worked on that attraction, and for her cameo,
Mm.
for her cameo, she actually made a little Easter egg nod to
Yes.
it. Well, she was the
Kimberly.
MC.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
she was the MC for the longest time. I
Megan Maroney, and
Yeah, Megan
we are
Maroney.
very
Okay,
happy.
yeah, we could drop
We are
Megan's
very
name. Yeah,
happy that she
yeah,
came to be one of our guest
yeah,
stars, and you can also catch her in a show called Goodbye in the Green Venue during Fringe.
That's right.
yeah. Shout out to you, Megan. We love you.
So Dina, tell me a little bit about yourself, your history with the theater, or anything you like. Tell me about your production company too.
Okay, well, with what you were saying with last year's show versus this year's
Hmm.
show, one of the things that crossed my mind as a producer, because as a producer I have certain responsibilities,
Hmm.
is I was thinking, we have set a bar of, if you want to call it expectation, or of audience reaction, or of what people are getting to know us, getting to know my company, and they might feel it will look a certain way. So this show has several elements. Last year it was, a laugh a second, bam 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 bam, and it was pure parody. This year we've got drama, we've got action, we've got comedy, we've got parody, we've got tribute. It's all there. It's a much broader picture, a much bigger picture, and we were really curious as to the audience response. So in with that, in starting your own company, I don't want to say I did it out of sheer morbid curiosity, but I have to say that was a big part of it. I knew, okay, so a little bit about me. I grew up in the Chelmsford, Massachusetts area. I moved here to Orlando in 2001 to attend Rollins, and actually Rollins Radio had me on a few days ago, and I completely forgot that I was a Rollins alum. So a little too late for that, but I am. If anyone listened to both, there you go. So I studied sociology. I also did my master's at UCF in criminal justice. So what I ended up learning from all of that, going through looking for work during the recession, just figuring out how I was spending my time ultimately, and the fact that I've modeled since I was 13 years old, and that was still what was giving me the majority of my work, were things in the arts, even though I was this pragmatic child that wanted to study, straight things, normal things, and be normal. It always kind of followed me. So what ended up happening was, in my adult years after school, I was realizing, number one, my absolute hatred for the traditional work week.
Hmm.
I firmly believe that the average Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever, is designed to slowly kill us. So you grapple with that in your head. Am I normal? Am I just lazy? Does everyone else deal with this? And then I realized, with all that was in my head, I was still making it work. I felt it was because I had to, because I was fighting the recession, and because I couldn't turn down modeling jobs or dancing jobs, because that was work.
Hmm.
So here I was saying, I got to be normal. I have to have this normal job, but I was all right. I was doing just fine in balancing the jobs that I had, the part-time work that I had that was more the average corporate climate, and the modeling and the dancing. So I had a turning point in 2014 where I had attended a show at Theater Downtown. It was called Clybourne Park, or Clybourne Park. Is that how you pronounce
Clybourne
it?
Park.
Clybourne Park. So I attended that, and they announced that they were going to be doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was done at my high school and at my college, and I missed it both times. So I had a little time. I had some free time. I was in between day jobs, and I was doing other things to kind of fill in the gaps. And I thought, gee, maybe they'll let me help with props, or something. So I talked to a friend that belonged in that group or had done that group, and he's like, you know what? I'm almost 100% certain they're looking for a model to fill one of those roles. So please go audition. And there's there's a bone of contention in that. I don't know if Frank and Fran are going to be listening to this, but they don't quite remember it that way. That's how I remember it. They were looking for a model, and that's why I showed up. And I think they remember it. Were showing up and going, "Oh, she's a model." So the truth is kind of lost to our memories, but that's how I remember it. So we're going to go with that. I turned up. I got the role of Candy Star in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Oh.
and that was my turning point
Mm.
because I wasn't just posing as a model. I wasn't just dancing. I actually had to speak. I didn't have a lot of lines, but I had to do it. Ended up being a really great experience. I met wonderful people. And at the end, I said, okay, great. That was fun. Bye. And everyone that I was working with was like, oh, no, 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 no. You're one of us now. Here's A, B, C, and D. This is what you have to do. So over the years, I was also doing a lot of traveling. I started working in marketing. I thought, gee, maybe it's okay. Maybe I can start my own thing and balance these two things. Hardly Working Productions was born. It's a dual concept. Half of the company focuses on marketing. I take new businesses or existing businesses and I do what needs to be done from the marketing perspective. A lot of times, marketing becomes kind of a stepchild
Mhm.
where companies either can't afford to have somebody full time, or it gets kind of lost in the shuffle, or people become responsible for it that don't really want the responsibility or aren't really equipped for it. So if a company is new, my company will come in on a contract basis and do what needs to be done for the startup marketing, preparing for a grand opening, preparing for the social media platforms, all that stuff. If a company's existing, I will come in and I'll evaluate and I'll say, this is what I think is working, this is what I think is not working, and then go from there. It's on a contract basis, typically around 3 months. My hour is free to come in and talk about your business. And if companies decide to take my advice from that hour and implement them themselves, that is totally fine. No harm, no foul. I'm good with that. They end up recommending me later anyway. Otherwise, I can go in as a contract basis or hourly. So that's how that half works. The other half is putting up shows. And so far, so good. It's been a really, really great experience. I did a show up in Massachusetts over the summer that was in between last year's Shakespeare's performance and this year's Shakespeare's performance. That was called Miss, written by William Newkirk. He's right here in the Orlando area.
Mhm.
That was about the thalidomide crisis, the 1960s. It's an award-winning show, and I took that and put it up in Boston. I went home to put up something on my own for the first time. Usually for the Shakespeare stuff, for the Orlando stuff, I co-produce with David Strauss,
Mhm.
who is the owner of Kitty Beautiful Cat Cafe, one of our sponsors. They're going to be opening this summer.
I'm so excited for that.
That's going to be great. A lot of people are very excited for that.
So you, your marketing company, I keep thinking that there are a lot of theater companies in Orlando that are just starting up, or the producers want to do something and they want to put on a show, or they've been existing for 1 or 2 years. But that would be such a great advantage. Your company would be such a great advantage to newer theater companies, to so that you can show them how to market their shows so that they do really well in Orlando.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, people do it in lots of different ways. I chose a very specific route. I went the official route and I got an LLC.
Mm.
I'm also combining it with something that is taken a little more seriously. It's a company that has a skill set in a world outside of theater,
Right.
which I wasn't sure if this is going to work. But so far it's working. Typically a lot of people have other day jobs that are doing theater. So unless they own a space, which I don't, and I found that to be an advantage for me because I travel so much and because now I live in South Dakota,
Mhm.
I still spend time here. I still spend time in Massachusetts. So it really depends. I mean, obviously I will offer my services to anyone who needs them, but this is such a unique thing with theater, with those who choose to act, with those who choose to actually have a company. Some people just kind of name a production company. They don't necessarily file a business.
Mhm.
Some people have a dedicated space, some people do not. It really just depends. It depends on how much time you have, how seriously you take it. It's very individualized process. So yes, I do think people could benefit from my services, but on the other hand, there's people that make it work in so many different ways.
Right. John, what about you?
Oh, I myself, I'm actually local born in South Florida, and It's fortuitous that the last show I did was Ghostbusters because I always considered that to be the actual time that I came into being because I saw Ghostbusters in the theater when it came out back way back when, and that was like my first real brush with inspiration. And in a way, I guess you could say I had kind of a self-imposed kind of sheltered life because, yeah, I had crazy amount of. Let's face it, the '80s was probably the ultimate age for the coolest action figures possible because I had big collection of all these toys. So here I was in my room, just kind of like a creative mad scientist coming up with all these awesome scenarios. So I kind of enjoyed the little world I was building for myself. And of course, I watched a load again because the '80s were great. With that was like the dawn of the event movie age. So of course, all these great things were coming out. I was kind of just in my own little world at that point. Then in 1990, then when I got into high school, um, my sister was my ride, so I had to wait for her to be finished with her basketball practice. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh, auditions. And first show they did was Robin Hood, and I was like, okay. I went in and I did a monologue for Robin Hood Men in Tights. I did the famous bad news in a good way scene, and I ended up scoring the role of this innkeeper who ends up getting ran through with a broadsword after like 6 lines, but you know it was enough to change me. And then after that, I ended up joining a shadow cast of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I know, like I was 16 years old, and already I was letting my inhibitions run wild. And that actually, I actually tell like any aspiring actor, especially at a young age, I'm like saying, do Rocky Horror because that one will, especially at the early time, will help you get used to doing a lot of crazy things on stage that you never thought you'd ever do, and you'll become much more comfortable doing a lot of scenes in other shows, which it's a good stepping stone. I always urge people to do. Well, so I did a lot of theater in South Florida for the longest time. I actually got to play a lot of great roles. I got to play Fagin and Oliver. I got to do Professor Harold Hill in the music band. Got to produce a bunch of shows. But the South Florida theater scene is pretty antagonistic. It seemed like it always seemed like two angry dogs in cages like barking at each other back and forth. It just never felt and unfortunately when someone from another troupe came to see another one of our shows there was always this fecal matter eating grin because radio. Uh, and that just like, yeah, it was just great. It was just great. Yeah, I hate you. Your show was way better than we could ever do. And then kind of thing but inevitably I was started going to conventions and I ended up meeting my wife to be at a convention in Orlando. We did the long distance thing, but then inevitably we moved out to Orlando together. And when the time came when I finally was able to get settled, had a decent enough work schedule that opened me up to be able to, start acting in Orlando. Um, Fortuitously and coincidentally, theater downtown again. The first production I did it was Vampire Lesbians of Sodom by Charles Bush. And the thing
And that's how I met you.
yeah, apparently
That was years before I acted.
yeah, it was apparently a really strong impression with everybody. The funniest thing about it is that I ended up uh, co-starring with Jamie Klein, and both of us are notoriously very straight actors. And our director Tim DeBond, bless him, he was like, going, "How did I end up with two straight guys as the leads of Vampire Lesbians of Sodom?" And we were like, "You chose us, man." But it was a hilarious experience, and actually ended up working with a whole cross section of just very talented performers that and everyone was just so gung ho with each other. So and then I did my first Fringe in I think 2011, right when I got married with Jamie. It was his show, the supporting cast, and that's when I had my first Fringe, and that's when my mind just exploded.
Mm.
The idea that it was such a close knit community where everyone's actually trading notes and everyone's like networking on the Fringe lawn, and I won't lie, cheese curds. But it was insane that compared to my experiences in South Florida, here is everyone after they're doing their shows all sitting on the lawn, comparing notes, talking with each other, even trading ideas, even spinning the top, closing the safe, Inception, coming up with new show ideas, and it was pretty amazing from there. I think I've lost count, but I think this may be my seventh or eighth, and it's never been the same experience. I think my only time I've only had one bad French experience. It had nothing to do with the festival; just had to do with the show I was doing. But everyone's going to have a bad one every now and then. But I've even had one where I was doing a show that was entirely driven by improv that had a video game narrative structure called The Republic.
Oh, I
Yeah,
remember that one.
yeah, and that one I played this kind of like amoral demigod kind of characters, stuck in the wilderness kind of thing. So I was, and my job was not done until someone said, "Oh, I wanted to punch you," and I was like, "Mea culpa." And I was like, "Thank you for that." Um, but I ended up meeting Dina. I'm trying to remember. I think it was when I did How to Hold Hands. David Strauss is also a wonderful writer. Did this incredible play, a very intimate play
Mhm.
about um, a struggling writer who's blocked, and she ends up meeting a aspiring writer with Asperger's. I played that character, and a relationship kind of forms from there. And I ended up meeting Dina because you came to see the show.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
officially. I'd known you before because it was to go to support Jamie in
yeah.
Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, and I'd kind of met you, but it was brief. And I just remember thinking that your wife was the coolest, like, person I'd ever met. I was just like, wow, she's so neat. She's so like cool looking.
Yeah, crazy shout out to my wife. She is a intense rabid cosplayer, very talented. In fact, she's with the 501st, and that alone tells you how good she is. Anyone can get to the 501st, particularly in the Orlando garrison. She does many variations of Kylo Ren, among other things. She just, I think, got in with Governor Price from Star Wars Rebels. And actually, yesterday at MegaCon, she just premiered her Yara Greyjoy from Game of Thrones.
Wow.
So, no, she's, I am in awe of her so many times.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
was too
So,
enamored with Lynn to even introduce myself to you. So we officially met during How to Hold Hands.
yeah, exactly. Well, I think you were kind of astonished by her because I think you saw her around the time when she shaved her head just because she wanted
Yes,
to,
yes, I
and
thought
she
it was
did
the
it.
coolest thing.
She did it because she wanted to. Actually, I think I remember she did it because because she hated that someone said title dictates behavior, or not that, or something like um, that you have to sell an image of yourself, or that image dictates behavior, and it's like. No, how about I just shave my head and see how that works?
Oh.
And she did. And as it turned out, everyone was like, okay, that looks really good. And as time went on, people were going, "So when are you cosplaying Furiosa?"
Right.
And I'm like, and I'm like, I live with her, and we were talking about that, and we're like, no, not happening.
But the
But
other
yeah,
good thing
so
with Orlando is people's
yeah,
reputation precedes them, and so I
yeah.
kind of knew you, kind of knew me. We met during How to Hold Hands officially.
I think that was the scariest thing when people were like coming to me, like saying, "Oh yeah, I know you." It's like, and I feel bad because I'm like, I don't know if I know you, and I feel bad because I'm also really bad with names, and there's always that time when you go into a convention or you go to a fringe festival and they come to you like, "Oh yeah, how's it going?" And I'm like, I know you.
I have that same problem
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
really good with faces, but I'm not so good with
mm,
names anymore. I used to be really good with names, but now I'm
yeah.
not.
I'm bad with names and faces, so I just smile.
Well, so I've been a nightmare the past couple of years because I always try to pride myself on being completely unrecognizable. I mean, God help her if she's ever at a convention and she tries to find me. I mean, I was at MegaCon this past weekend. I mean, Friday I was doing the Eighth Doctor from Doctor Who. Saturday I was the Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker.
Mm.
Hi. And yesterday I was Nick Wilde from Zootopia. So, in all times I'm wearing wigs, I'm wearing sunglasses. So,
That's what's been great
yeah,
about
yeah,
Shakespeare's Terminator too. It's appealing to sci-fi fans. It's appealing to theater people. It's appealing to
yeah.
moviegoers, 80s buffs. It's all over.
Yeah, that's actually one of the other things I've been loving doing with Ghostbusters and with this one is that very rarely you get a chance to have a project where you can combine your passions.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask
Yeah,
is if you both have a special affinity for Shakespeare or the classics in general and sci-fi and fantasy.
Shakespeare, I definitely do. When I was in high school, I did a theater tour out in London, and one of the major things we went out to, actually, we took a bus tour out to Stratford upon Avon, Shakespeare's hometown,
Hmm.
where the RSC is, and I actually got to see a production of As You Like It out there, and it was incredible. I mean, they are the standard for Shakespeare. I mean, if they do it bad, then they did something really, really wrong because the RSC are like the authority in Shakespeare, and to
Right.
get a chance, but to say that in your life you got a chance to go out to the heart and soul of theatrical culture and to go see a Shakespeare play performed by the people who pretty much make sure that it's second nature to them, and to see it, and it was a revelation.
Yeah.
So
Personally, I have an affinity for adaptations.
Hmm.
Films based on books, plays based on films, vice versa. And also, as a producer, I have a responsibility. I have three responsibilities. So, just to backpedal a little, when I saw Shakespeare's Ghostbusters, I took one look 5 minutes in and I was like, they've got something amazing. They have something people adore. This is marketable. So, as a producer, I have three responsibilities. One is to get talented and committed people on stage. And with that, it's doing something that will engage people, something that I feel will be successful, that people will enjoy, that is marketable. that comes with that magic combination. It's not just, my baby. I like to say to my co-producer David Strauss that, we make art babies. Last year our baby was not exactly planned. This year our baby was planned. So we make art babies, but you can't like having a baby. You can't expect other people to love your baby as much as you love your baby. So you have to get that it takes a thespian village to get something successful. So you get something that the people will enjoy, that you feel is marketable. So rule number one, my responsibility as a producer: get talented and committed people in my cast and crew. Number two, get sponsorships from businesses that aren't necessarily theatrically related, such as Barley and Vine, which is one of our platinum sponsors right there on Bumpy and Washington, and Kitty Beautiful, to be involved as sponsors. We give them shout outs on podcasts, in our program. Anytime we have anything printed, we give them a shout out. That benefits them, and it benefits them in the community. And then finally, to get people in seats. So again, with having something that is fun on stage or that's engaging, that's a big responsibility. So the way I explain it when I speak to students is my responsibility is faces, hands, and butts. Faces on stage, hands giving out sponsorship, and butts in seats.
Wow. I've never been a producer for anything, so that is quite a succinct and excellent explanation of what a producer's job really is.
Thanks. And you know what? I went for years with doing a lot of theatrical and artistic things without ever fully knowing what a producer does. And I think years ago I would have said, "Oh God, I can't do that. I can't do that." And then you realize you can by breaking it down and understanding what it means.
That's incredible.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So we're going to take a quick musical interlude.
Cool.
And then we will come back. I'm going to have some more questions for you about your show. But right now we are going to listen to Tessellate by Alt J. You are listening to WPRK.
Ooh, can I throw out a trivia for our members?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. In what film did Arnold Schwarzenegger also say, "I'll be back"? Everyone think about it.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to WPRK 91.5, Winter Park, Florida. You were listening to Orlando Theater Hour. Today, my guest is Dina Ronan and John Reed Adams from Shakespeare's Terminator II, currently playing at Orlando Fringe. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So, you had a trivia question.
I did. I asked if anyone in listening knew in what other film did Arnold Schwarzenegger say, "I'll be back," other than Terminator films. So the answer to that is the original Terminator came out in
1984.
The movie Twins came out in 1988, and he has a throwaway line during one of the scenes saying, "I'll be back." Not in the same gusto as Terminator, but he says it. And then T2 Judgment Day came out in the year
1991.
1991. So
Oh.
in between those two Terminator movies, he says it in the movie Twins.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I just remembered recently. and I thought we should talk about it. I thought it was important enough to discuss.
So, what's currently your favorite part of the show that you perform in, or that you, if you have a favorite part of producing the show, that you have a favorite part that you do for that, or when you perform?
Okay, it's a couple of things. So my favorite moment so far was our opening, and we're all jazzed and we're all excited and we're all nervous. And the first two people to come out are myself and Pam Stone, who is playing Sarah Connor. And her and I are in the wings, and we're waiting for it to start. And I just looked over at her, and she just looked so beautiful and so confident that I started to cry. So that so far has been my favorite moment. My favorite moment on stage is probably my bit as a messenger. So we're handling these things in a Shakespearean way, according to what was available technology wise at the time, for the most part anyway. So instead of a telephone call in the movie, I'm a messenger, and it's just getting this fantastic response. So that's my favorite moment when I'm on stage. My favorite moment of the show, gosh, let me think about that one. I think I really like the end, because we have the ebb and flow where everyone's laughing because they're expecting it to be exactly like Shakespeare's Ghostbusters, but they're still enjoying the laughs, and then everyone's enthralled with the action, and then at the end it's pretty serious. So there's a moment where the mood in the audience changes, and it's a beautiful thing. So instead of a favorite moment of the show, I think that's my favorite overall thing, is that the audience journey. That's been phenomenal. So that's for me. What about you, John?
Hmm. Well, I think I've kind of already tackled it. Just with the best thing about it for me is also, like I said before, the most intimidating aspect. Just the fact that I've been able to accomplish what I've been able to, given my inexperience with the sword fights. Which, admittedly, the T1000, that's the major thing he contributes to the whole proceedings, is the menace factor. But I suppose if we want to broaden the scope and talk about my favorite thing, just in general about working on the show, and even in turn, just working with the crew we've been working with for the past couple of years, is the camaraderie that we've had, to the point where last night a whole bunch of us were staying up till all hours watching the finale of Game of Thrones, and the fact that all of us were doing that together, and the fact that all of us, in a very militaristic fashion, were able to snag advanced tickets to Avengers Endgame, like right when the gates opened, and all of us reserved an entire back row at Point Orlando IMAX. And the fact it was all of us doing that together, that was kind of the big deal. And the fact that all of us are ready and willing to do a big commute up to Atlanta
Yes.
in a month all together and share a B&B for for a couple days. The fact that we're so comfortable with each other that we're willing to stay in close quarters
Yes, that's an
with
exciting
each other.
announcement. Actually, we
Yeah.
will be taking the show to Atlanta Fringe.
Wow. Oh,
Mm.
and when is it Atlanta Fringe?
When does it start? June.
June 10th, I
June
think. Yeah,
10th-ish, we're
second
going
weekend of
with
June.
that.
Yeah, second weekend of June, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
when I have to admit, we've been having fun. We stick together a lot, and it's not like we're a clique. It's not like we don't love everyone. Of course, we love
Yeah.
everyone, but we tend to walk in a big group in our shirts and our Terminator sunglasses, and people are like, "You guys are a force to be reckoned with," and we're like, "No, we're not."
No, no, we're absolutely humble human beings.
Absolutely,
But
but it's fun being together. You're right.
yeah, well,
We have a good group.
even so much so to the point where even when we're not doing shows, actually, one of the things I always try to do is I have these gatherings called the Cinema Schlock Society, which I do for my channel Narcotic Casserole, where I just bring everyone together and we just watch the worst of the worst, and me in a very sadistic fashion. Film their before reactions and their after reactions, and that's something special to capture on film, because you never think you're ever going to get someone's reaction to a movie like Shanghai Surprise,
Mm-hmm.
and then afterwards just
Which is
like,
my idea. Just saying.
that was entirely your idea, and all of our therapy bills are on you. But yeah, but the fact that we have that kind of community with each other, and the fact that we are always ready and willing to bring in new people. I mean, because Terminator, we did bring in new people. We got Matt Doman, who is an experienced wrestler and who had been, I think, for 9 years. He said
Yes.
9 years, something like that. And he came in. A lot of it was because we really needed someone who could act the role, but also embody it. Because there was a point where there was a bit of a scare where we didn't find anyone, and I was almost about to play it, and I'm like, no. And I would have tried my best to try and bulk up, but at the same time, though, I'm like going, I'm a 37-year-old guy, like almost like going bald, looking like my dad. I don't think that's the image that people are gonna want to see when they see a Terminator. They're gonna want to see someone who can convey that power and that majesty of the character that Arnold, to his credit, really cultivated and made the icon that it has over all these decades. So I don't know if a guy like me was able to convey that as well. Now T1000 I was totally comfortable with, but then I was like, no, we need to find someone much,
Yeah, Matt's
yeah,
been a great addition.
yeah,
Simon Needham, our director, who's
yeah.
also new to our group, but Bill Warner, of course, is
Bill
also
Warner,
new to our
of
group.
course,
And
yeah.
all of our new people brought something new into it, something that we needed for this unique experience. And it's been great working with new people and
Absolutely.
experiencing new things.
Yeah, with Matt, I've had to work in close quarters with him because practically the bulk of a lot of the fights is between me and him. So I'm always like trying to make sure that I'm trying not to step on his toes, literally and metaphorically. But at the same time, I'm always like trying to. Um, that was my brain. That was my brain.
He has an idea.
Yes, yes, I have a vision. I have a vision of not going on a tangent. Yes, so but to make sure that we're communicating properly, to make sure that the fight goes off without a hitch. And a lot of times, I'm looking at him, and he is very committed and he's very serious. And a lot of times I'm like, did I make you mad? Did I make you mad? Actually, a lot of times at the end of the show during curtain call, since it's inaudible, I'm whispering to him, did anything go wrong? Did anything absolutely go wrong? He's like, no, you're good. You're good. You're fine.
Is there any part of this process that you found particularly challenging and that you would give advice to other performers or producers or directors or writers?
I have an idea too. Okay, so my thought on that is it's a learning curve, and you have to be gentle with yourself. So we tend to be overtly critical of ourselves, and
Hmm.
that's all internal.
Yeah.
So it's it's a journey. Enjoy the journey. Be kind to yourself. Those would be my two. What about
Mm.
you, John?
That's not too far off. Definitely know that despite everything, just stick with it. Throw yourself into it really, yeah, and just know that that there will be times you're going to trip up. Don't worry. Just keep sticking with it because you can do it. You just gotta just keep throwing yourself into it. There were times where there was actually one rehearsal where I messed up so horribly. Not that anyone got hurt, but just I myself, because I've been practicing it so intensely that I was thinking like, okay, I got this, and then messed up horribly, and I was pretty much Da Vinci coding myself, Paul Bettany style, figuratively, absolutely figuratively. Okay, maybe a touch literally, but and for an entire day I was just beating myself up over it, and but then I just had to just throw myself back in. I wasn't content until the next day of rehearsal when I go in and just say, okay, let's jump in and do this, and it went fine, and I was like, okay, I'm good. And that's tenacity, I think, is the ultimate key. But then again, tenacity is the ultimate key to pretty much being able to accomplish anything.
And it's never too late to learn a new skill. We all have this wonderful new skill now. So that's
Exactly.
that's another big thing I'd like to drive home. It's never too
Mm.
late to learn a new skill. And when I speak to middle schoolers, I end up speaking at schools quite often. I like to drive home that you never know what the person next to you is going to turn out to be, what beautiful human beings you're all going to become. So number one,
Mhm.
no bullying. And number two, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. And people are multifaceted. There are skills you will have from either doing sports or doing poetry club or whatever that will transfer to theater.
Mm.
When you look at auditions, they say, do you have tumbling experience or acrobatic experience? Do you have experience rhyming? Do you have
Mhm.
experience with accents? These
Mm.
things in your everyday life, in your outside life, in the business world, in the school world, they will transpose to theater.
And they just sort of become part of your toolbox as a performer, an
Mm.
actor, a
Yes.
director, a writer. Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the great things about just acting in general is the exploration of self in order to manifest certain emotions in order certain characters. Now, I don't know if I ever have the ambition to be a malicious robot, but I'll definitely say but I definitely have had times like a long time ago. I did a production of Assassins where I played John Hinckley,
Mm.
and in order for me to get into that kind of mentality, I had to explore like and it's a scary thought of what aspects of yourself could you relate to this particular person. And I realized, oh wait a minute, I was kind of sheltered, and so was Hinckley, and that was a scary thought. And by the time the production was done, I was like, I'm not Hinckley. I'm not actually Hinckley. Granted, W was president, and I had little old ladies at the end of the show going, "Can you please kill W?" And I'm like,
Oh
"What?" Mm.
I just finished
Mm.
reading this playwriting book.
Mm.
I forget the author, but the book is called the the playwright's guidebook, and he says that in order to play a character or to write a character who is antagonistic or a villain, you have to have compassion and understanding as to why this person or this character is doing the thing that they're doing, and the character has some logic associated with the decisions that they make, even though they may not be logical to the other characters in the play or to the audience
Mm.
watching.
Well, it's the classic adage: the villain is the hero of their own story.
Hmm.
That is a adage I totally live by. It makes absolute perfect sense because everyone always thinks they're in the right when even the worst people always think that they're the hero, and anyone who has that kind of maladjusted mind that they can think that these atrocities they commit are totally in the right. Daenerys, yeah, you know.
So I've never actually played a villain. I would love to. So one thing, I mean, among many things I've enjoyed about being in my 30s, you have a little bit more money, you have a little bit more autonomy,
Hmm.
you care a lot less about what people think. But I'm also thinking, gee, maybe now I can play like that vamp role and I can finally be the villain.
Mm.
So, but with that, the role I played when I first was exposed to the show Miss about the thalidomide
Hmm.
crisis over the summer, I was the producer. I didn't act in it, but when I first did it, it was through Playwrights Roundtable here in Orlando,
Right.
and I played a drug rep. Now she was not a villain, however, she drank the Kool-Aid, so to say. It's
Mm.
like we trust the men. I just want to keep my job. I don't ask questions. I love playing roles from the '60s and from the '50s. I've got a big soft spot for nostalgia and for vintage. So I found myself feeling kind of like a Jackie O thing. But
Mm.
as I developed the character, I realized, she's watching out for herself. She's not all that interested in hearing these things about this drug that was, thalidomide was touted as this cure all, ended up causing a lot of birth defects. And she could have had a role in being a hero. And her main concern was that her own marriage wasn't working, that she needed this job for whatever reason, and that she wanted to be admired and she wanted to be seen as beautiful and probably submissive.
Mm.
So, yet she was not a villain. However, what do we see as villainy even in today's day and age? Closing your eyes to things, saying nothing to things.
Right.
So that was very impactful for me. Where it's like, okay, this character isn't a villain, but she could certainly be seen as on the wrong side.
Mm. So, real quick, can you tell me a few artists or shows that you're looking forward to supporting for the rest of the Fringe?
Yes, I'm going to go see Daphne and Me by BJ Arberton Clinton, and
Mhm.
he wrote and produced and acts in it. And I am extremely critical of one man shows. I mean, I've seen wonderful ones like Bruce Ryan Costello's is amazing, and a ton of others. But I tend to bristle and go, oh, someone's just telling their coming of age story and nobody cares because it's overdone. BJ's doing extremely well. He's gotten fantastic feedback, and he must have something very special. I believe that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Awesome. What about you, John?
Actually, I did buy some tickets for some, which I'm really stoked to see. Mainly, of course, because my good friend Brett Carson's in one of them. But I'm hearing great things. The Church of Saint Bear.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely looking forward to that one, especially when I found out that it's about people in a church when the zombie apocalypse kicks off. I was like, sold. But then there's another one, actually, like right prior to it, with another friend from Cinema Slock, Sam Waters, Infestation.
Oh.
I don't know the exact story, but I suspect it has kind of a B movie edge, which I can't imagine how that could not cater to my sensibilities. But stuff like that works. I've already seen like a load. And one of the other things I love about Fringe that they do now is that if you're an artist, you can actually come in and sit in on the preview screen. So thanks to that, I've been able to see a lot of great stuff, and I've been able to like tell everyone about some of the ones I saw. Like the standouts for me, The Butler did it. I adored it because
I've
I
heard good
love.
things.
I'm looking forward to seeing that too.
Yeah, I love murder mysteries, and I love murder mystery parodies. Clue, I think, is one of the great underrated films of all time.
I love Clue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was how I started my love affair with Tim Curry. Most people say Rocky Horror.
Oh, for me, it was it.
Really?
Yeah.
But for me, it was Clue. He was just so handsome in his
sorry.
uniform.
Home Alone 2. Thank you very much.
He was also in uniform for that too.
He was.
Yes, he was.
Mhm.
Yes, what's the matter? Store wouldn't take your sterling credit card.
So let's do a quick rundown of your show information. Shakespeare's Terminator II is in the Gold Venue at the Orlando Museum of Art during this year's Fringe. The remaining performances are Monday, May 20th at 9:30 p.m., Thursday, May 23rd at 8:30 p.m., and Saturday, May 25th at 5:15 p.m.
Those are the times, okay?
Those are the times, yeah. Tickets are $12, and you can get tickets at orlandofringe.org. And then we have our local events. Billy Elliot the Musical is at the Garden Theater in Winter Garden. It runs until June 2nd. For tickets and more information, please visit gardentheater.org. That's theater with an R-E, not an E-R. Or you can call their box office at 407-877-4736. And then we have Next to Normal at Theater South Playhouse. Runs for only 2 performances on the same day, on May 25th at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. You can visit their website for more information, or you can call their box office at 407-489-4458. And we also have so many other Fringe shows that are coming up. Let's see, we've got Dandy Darkly's All Aboard. Neil Arthur James was on last week. Goodbye by John Mark Jernigan. Leviticus by Kira Hannon, who is also a guest. Field Guide to Not Being an A-Word for radio by Logan Donahue.
Logan, we love you.
War Paint by Lily Garnett. From Here by Donald LaRoupe. Daphne and Me by BJ Alberton Clinton. Shakespeare's Terminator II, of course. Fury and Sound, The Seance, Blackwood, Mean Gaze, Florida Man, and yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I also saw The Asylum of Dr. Moreau, which is a shadow puppetry show in the
And those
Pink
are some
venue.
great guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
are they the same ones who did 13 Dead Dreams of Eugene last year?
I want to say
Paul Strickland was in 13 Dead Dreams of
Okay,
Eugene
I'm
last
gonna
year,
say
yeah, but
no.
No?
they're in the
Okay.
same venue.
All right, I'm gonna be
though.
quiet. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, 13 Dead Dreams of Eugene was also the Shadow.
Yeah.
the Shadow
Okay.
show. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because that was hypnotic. That was hypnotic.
It was
last year.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want to see it again.
Mm.
I don't know if I can though.
Yeah.
I
Actually,
don't know
another
where
one-
it is now.
Another one I'd actually throw out, Star Crust. I saw that one as well.
Oh.
That was outstanding. It's from the same crew who did Dead for a Ducat last year,
Hmm.
where they do a film noir adaptation of a Shakespeare play. Last year, Dead for a Ducat was Hamlet. This year, it's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, cool.
But the cool thing is, it's two actors, and they don't just play like a set of characters each. They trade characters in the Misfits, and they always signify each character by an article of clothing.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was so cool watching
have
this.
to check that
yeah,
out.
check that out.
All right.
Mm.
So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. This is fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Orlando Theater Hour. You can find us online at www.orlandotheaterhour.com. That's with an R-E in theater, not an E-R. You can find us on Instagram at Orlando Theater Hour, on Facebook, and on SoundCloud. Interested in being on the show to talk about your upcoming show or ongoing endeavor? Email orlandotheaterhour@gmail.com with your name, the name of your project, and a brief description of what you'd like to talk about. Tune in on Monday mornings from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WPRK 91.5 FM or WPRK.org/listen live to hear about Orlando's next incredible theater project.